Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Good Deeds Note Investing Podcast. I am one of your co-hosts, Jamie Bateman, here with Chris Seveney. Chris, how are you?
Good, Jamie. How are you today?
Good. What's new? What's going on?
Today was, interesting week. Actually, it's been a very, very good week for me. Kind of just roll right into trials and tribulations, I guess. So first, I, give myself a little pat on the back. Basically, finish my thesis so I can finally get my master's in real estate finance and development. So that's honor, I think, to finally finish that. I joke.
Yeah, congrats.
I joke with my sister, who has been a stay-at-home mom after getting a master's in psychology, that I now am as educated as her. That was a little internal. People who know me, I can have a little bit of sarcasm in me, and my family is very witty, so we sometimes give each other a little bit of flack.
Sarcasm and a competitive streak, I think, right?
Yeah,
a little bit.
I have a little bit of competitive streak in me, but no, actually, I mean, some crazy stuff happened. Knock on wood. This property that I have going to foreclosure next week is supposed to has a buyer who's supposed to close today, but they're supposed to close like 6 weeks ago. So that would be a nice win there. Let's see. Oh, the loan that I had, borrower hadn't paid in 13 years, signed the loan modification. So I'm getting that one boarded. So I think that's probably a record right there. 2 payoffs, a settlement agreement, and let's see, what else? And another foreclosure thrown out of court. So this one in, let's see, I think Tennessee, where it was a CFD and they filed it, and then it got thrown out because they wanted it filed through like a different process. So it was more procedural more than anything.
So the borrower who hadn't paid in 13 years, were there any issues there with maturity date or statute of limitations or anything?
Potentially.
Just curious.
Potentially, but the loan had not matured, but the guy basically had different life circumstances, and it's really a win-win because he's going to renovate it. He's probably going to flip it. He's going to make money on it, which I hope he does. I'm going to make some money on the deal as well. And, it's one of those things where, if I would have stuck to my guns and, did the entire payoff, it would not have been in his best interest at all. But I probably took close to, I don't know, $75,000 or $100,000 off of what was owed.
Wow.
Because, if I didn't, then there was nothing there. Why would he? I wanted to make it very, appealing to them as well. And that's kind of one of the things in this business is you got to look at things from, different perspectives. You need to look at it full 360 to see, hey, does this work, for that individual? And that's kind of, the whole process behind the good deeds is, you're trying to make everything a win-win for people. And that's where, in this instance, I believe, we did.
That's pretty neat. Yeah.
What about you?
Got a few things going on. Today is actually the day. I don't know if this is on your radar at all, but supposedly the New York loans are all supposed to be boarded today.
Oh.
Or at least start the boarding process with FCI. So we'll see how that goes. I had one that took over a month between the initial boarding date and then the final boarding process. So I don't know why that took so long, but so we'll see. Anyway, we are on the rental side of things. We're refinancing a couple of commercial loans that we have on our Maryland properties. So, figured this was a good time to do that with rates so low.
Yep.
And then kind of working on our FPI processes still. I've mentioned that before. Also had a $96 million tape come across last night. So I'm curious to check that out.
I thought you were complaining about.
I was. I guess I need to complain more because I complained and then the tape showed up. So we'll talk.
Yeah. I can't take all of it down.
Okay. It's a little different It's more like it's more conventional /FHA/VA stuff. So I'm not sure.
You don't
Yeah,
want 90 cents on a dollar.
yeah. So I still want to check it out. And actually, before we get started in the main topic, I had somebody sent me a question. This is kind of a pop quiz for you.
Sure.
So somebody just sent me this morning. I'm selling a small note via PaperStack, and the person that wants to buy it, they agreed to a price, provided vesting information to close, but they never requested any collateral, never requested pay history, title, anything like, at all. And the question really comes down to, can I, as a seller, be scammed? Would you have any concerns, with something like this, where the buyer never requested really much information other than what's on the listing page with PaperStack?
I wouldn't sell them.
No.
Nope. Because whether or not it's a scam, is it performing or non-performing? Did they say?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
So if it was a non-performing asset, because I had this on PaperStack, a non-performing asset, and the person put under agreement, and then it's like, hey, I'm ready to close. I'm like, you didn't ask for collateral, you didn't ask for anything, and the loan had a lot of hair on it. And I basically just canceled the deal because the person clearly doesn't understand note investing.
Mm-hmm.
And what I don't want to have in 6 months' time, have somebody post on Facebook, hey, I bought this asset and now, I'm being sued because I bought it from, Chris Seveney.
Mm-hmm.
And, basically it's because this person didn't do their due diligence or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
I've had people on PaperStack ask me for the borrower's phone number and contact information as part of the due diligence so they could reach out to them and see why they're not paying. I'm like, you can't, I'm like, you can't call a borrower. So stuff like that is like, big red flags for me.
Right. Yeah. I would agree.
For me, I want to sell to people who know what they're doing. So that's why I would just, be like, now, if it was a performing note and there was something in the description that says, hey, clean title, stuff like that, then, and it was low balance, maybe they just want to take the risk. But typically, that's a sign that the person's clearly not knowing what they're doing.
Yeah, I've had a couple, particularly one that it was the guy's first note, and I kind of, walked him through the process and told him, this is what you should be asking me. Here, let me help you out here.
Mm-hmm.
But this seems like a little more extreme than that. So yeah, that was a little curveball question for you.
What about you? What would you do?
I agree. I mean, it just seems odd. I mean, it just seems like a red flag. So I wouldn't just sell it without further communication. And I don't think I would sell it to them either.
I almost wish, maybe recommend this to Brett and them at PaperStack, that people like took a survey and next to their name kind of give a little rating for like how many notes they either bought on PaperStack or in general, or at least PaperStack, because they can track that just so you kind of know who to,
kind of like Airbnb, you're reviewed as a host and as a tenant or
So that'd be a good idea. Maybe we mention that to Brett.
Yeah, I was supposed to be on their podcast, but we had some technical difficulties. But anyway,
I'm just more upset that he had you before me, because my ego
hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, my ego, just can't take that kind of stuff. So
right. So our main topic today, Chris's goals for 2021.
Yes, and what I do with them. So
I guess you don't have them memorized then.
Well, I wanted to go through them in a specific order. So that is why. Let's see. Where do we put them? I don't know. What did I do with them, Jamie? I sent them to you yesterday, didn't I?
In email, yep.
Okay.
I can find them.
Okay, I found them. So, leave it to me to be unprepared. It's not me. I say that because Jamie's like, what are we talking about tomorrow? I'm like, oh no, we'll wing it. But so, it's interesting because first I want to start out by, hoping this podcast actually inspires people. This is not meant to kind of, for me to talk to see how impressed I am or anything like that. But it's really, want people to be inspired by the podcast today, because I have in front of me right now my goals from 2019, what I planned for that year. And in 2 years, kind of the strides you make. And people ask, how do you do it? And, I mentioned to someone the other day, simple. I get up in the morning, have breakfast with my family, have a cup of coffee, come downstairs, do my work, and then, have lunch, do my work, have dinner, do my work, go to bed. We all do the same thing every day. It's just a matter of, how you manage that process. And I'm not smarter than anyone else. But I probably can say I'm probably a little more ferocious and passionate. And that's, my drive where I got. But I say it because in 2019, my goal was to acquire 60 notes and raise $1.2 million and have a monthly cash flow of $2,500 a month. So, which, basically is what, $30,000 a year. That was 2019. That was 2 years ago. And I'll be honest with you, I crushed that goal. I probably was, dollar volume, maybe, basically by about 50% is where I'd say probably hit that goal. And I set that as kind of the baseline because now we're going into 2021 and over the 2 years kind of show how you can, expand, and grow a business. Now, it doesn't have to be to this size or whatever it may be, but just how the baby steps. And the other thing I'll mention is in that target, I had a 2022 goals, which were 200 notes, $5 million raised, and $10 million in monthly cash flow. I also had 50,000 downloads on the podcast. Which
how much was the cash flow?
10,000.
Okay,
yep.
Gotcha.
And I was hoping to hit 50,000 downloads on the podcast. So kind of, undershot that one. So my first goal is, many of you may have known, I redid the website and I've started to branch out into doing some management for people as well as mentoring. And my mentoring program is a little bit different than the other programs out there where it's not, hey, you come spend a weekend with me and I charge you tens of thousands of dollars. It's hourly basis as needed to go through the process and steps. It's not for somebody who's brand new to the business. It's somebody who's got some education but is afraid to take that leap or make a mistake when they buy that note. So my first goal is I want to mentor 25 people next year. So I've got 5 people already signed up that I'm, working with already. But my goal is to 25 people, and phrase that I came up with is I want to co-elevate people. I want to take people in this business and we all rise together. Is what I'm trying to. My focus for next year and my theme for next year is co-elevation. My little one-page business plan, whoever's downloaded it, is a theme name. Mine for next year is co-elevation.
I like it.
So that is number one. Mentor 25 people.
Do you want to talk about briefly how that's gone so far, or is it a little too early to say?
Yeah, no. Actually, it's interesting because it is something that, I've just get started rolling out. It's a work in process in the sense of, like I have a questionnaire that I have people fill out to really get, a background on them. And, it goes back to some things like you forget some of the simpler things because you do them. So, it's like in the questionnaire, I didn't put, hey, do you have an LLC already? And just to understand, hey, where the goal of that is to see where people are at. What I am finding though, of the 5 people who I'm speaking with right now, we all have this problem. We're more ready than we think we are. People who have been taking, we've watching videos, listening to podcasts, and been involved for 3 to 6 months, they're more ready than they think they are. You're never going to be fully ready. I mean, there's just the reality of you're never going to feel comfortable buying your first note. But they are, there's one guy, I won't name his name, he's been like studying for like 45 days, but he's also he's like an auditor. So, you can just, for me, I just, stereotype an auditor as somebody who's like really into the weeds and digging in and be good at due diligence because that's what they do. And this guy literally is like, he's created his due diligence template and stuff. And I said, hey, do you want to use mine? He's like, no, I want to create my own so I understand the process and stuff. So yeah, so no, it's been going well from that perspective.
Yeah,
And
just to piggyback on when are you ready? I totally agree. There was on the Facebook group, there was a question about, you know, forming an LLC and that kind of thing. And it kind of the thread devolved into like, well, you shouldn't be using an LLC and
oh my God.
all this stuff. So I don't want to go rehash that, but the point is my point is you can always adjust, it's not like you can't go from an LLC to a trust or, I think you've changed how
Of course.
set up some of your entities and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to just reiterate, you're never fully ready. None of
No.
us are fully ready.
No, I went from an LLC, then a holding company with LLCs. Now I'm an S corp and got other things. But the funny thing, I have to say this: somebody posted on Bigger Pockets. They have 2 rentals, cash flowing like $500 a month. They spoke to this company called Anderson. Anderson, it's not Anderson Consulting, the big mega firm. It's another Anderson. And they had a 30-minute consult with them, and they recommended, because they have 2 rentals, that they should have 4 LLCs, 2 trusts to hold these rentals in, a living trust, and a S corp or a C corp. And they would do
incredible.
And they would do all of this for $14,000.
Wow.
And it's just like, and people, people do that stuff, but the reality of it is, you don't need to do all that. I mean,
no.
With 2 rentals, you don't need to have an LLC. I mean,
it comes down to your risk tolerance. But
yeah, and again, if you have no assets, there's nothing people can take. You don't need an LLC.
Right.
So, so I digress a little bit. So that was number 1.
That's a good one.
And I'm pretty much I have 3 main ones. The second one is I want to start a membership website and also create a training program. I've been anti-training for years, and so forth, but I finally, had enough people, kind of, poke me in the arm a little bit and say on this. And it's something, actually, I'll be honest with you. And people say, how do you do all this? Where do you have the time and stuff? I've been working on this stuff for 5-6 months, and just planning ahead. And this same thing, like when I started my first fund, I had started 5 months prior with my attorney getting stuff ready. So when I hit the go button, it was like, boom, it was ready to go.
Well, and you mentioned 2019 was more profitable than you expected, but that's largely because in 2018, you were setting up that first fund, I think. Is that right?
We right at the beginning of end of 2018, I started the process, and then 2019 really is when we got it rolling. But
gotcha.
That was in the Q1. I didn't do it until Q3, so it would give people an idea.
Yeah.
So this one, was interesting because this one, I went round and round and round about on, do I take the group off of Facebook? Do I go to the Mighty Networks or some of these other groups? And I've got several consultants who I've been working with over this time, and essentially, Facebook is going to stay. The Notes and Bolts isn't going anywhere from that perspective. But the membership site is, it's going to be, kind of several steps. The membership site's going to be so people, and it's going to be paid. So people, there'll be different levels, but on the top level, it's kind of, I'm going to open up kind of the vaults of all the files I have and stuff like that for templates and stuff. But the other thing that I'm going to be providing is people are going to have access to my calculator. So my imaginary calculator, you will have access to, and I've actually spoken with a company that it's going to be licensed, so I can license the calculator. So, people can't take it, download, and be like, hey, I signed up for a month and I got your calculator. Screw you. No, it doesn't work that way. I click a little button and it wipes off your computer. So,
wow.
It's run through like an executable file or something like that. Let me tell you, it wasn't cheap to get that process. And, people, and I'll be, and again, I'm not doing like a membership site, for, as a profit center. For me, I mean, to create this site, it's going to, it's costing me over $10,000 to just give people an idea. But the way I want to manage this and organize it, I got a lot of ideas, and with people who are helping me build this, to grow this, it is going to help me develop and grow my business as well as everyone's around. And again, it goes back to co-elevation, where if we can raise everybody up, it's going to be helpful for everyone, and try and get people to be subject matter experts in different areas. That would be very, very helpful. So, and then the training component is going to be, something that I think is also going to be completely different level. It's going to be, video based, but also the plan right now is video based for topics. And then at the end of that topic, it's a live, session of Q&A. And I want to make sure you're ready to go on to the next level. So it's not, hey, spend a weekend watching videos. It's going to be watch, video a day. It's going to be 15, 20 minutes, not 3 hours, because your brain can't handle 3 hours of information. You do things in small snippets. Of course, it is going to be over an extended, longer period of time because of all the content that I'm going to be throwing at people. But, it's something that I think will be beneficial. And it's, not going to be, $50,000 either. So it's going to be, and people who actually take my training actually get rolled right into the mentoring program. So you're not taking my training unless you're buying a note. So that's the interesting thing as well. There will be a cost to it, but I'm telling people you have to have this much money because you're buying a note. Like, I'm going to have the whip, and basically we're going to go through this, and then, you're buying a note because, I'm not having somebody spend this money to go through this thing and not do anything with it. It's like, unless you're like, hey, this just isn't for me. But if this is for you, then.
And to be clear, these are not notes that you're not going to have like a trade desk or.
Hell no. Yeah, I will not. And I've tell people, like with my mentoring, hey, can I just buy a note from you? Nope. Like, why not? I'm like, let me explain this to you. Most of my, whether it's my money or in a fund, my number one priority is to sell at the highest price to, have responsibility with my investors. How can I sell at the higher price and then in the same token tell you need to buy for the best number that meets your needs? It's a complete conflict of interest. So no, it's not. If there's an asset on paper stack that I have listed and somebody wants to put an offer in on it and so forth, all the power to them, and so forth. But typically I'm just going to shy away from people like, no, you're buying from, somebody else. If there's a pool of assets that comes in the door and stuff like that, it's, again, that's even a grayer area because I know people that do that. And then what they do is they hand, the junk assets to some of, the people that are with them. And I'm not getting involved in that rat race.
So just as far as your new programs that you've already started and that are coming out, you'll have the mentoring and then the group, the community, if you will. And then thirdly is the asset management.
Yeah, so that's another one where, and I've got 5 notes I'm managing for people right now. The best way to probably explain a little bit is that people know somebody who also does this. And, we're not in competition, so I can, in this sense, but Bill McCafferty, Bill does it on seconds and he manages assets for people. I'm going to do the same on first. I actually have some right now that I'm working with people who maybe you got into a bad JV deal and the person, you're not happy with them, and you, instead of them giving you money, you want to take the asset back, but you're, again, you're passive in the sense, okay, you get that back and then I manage it to you. I do not own it. It doesn't go into my name. I'm just kind of, think of me as, just like an attorney or any other consultant you hire to do something. I'm there to manage that asset for you.
So. And that's a monthly fee or?
Yeah, it's a monthly fee. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So,
okay. Pretty cool.
Yeah. So kind of, my goals, that I've been talking about right now are more, again, more industry things of my bigger, picture that I've had. But the third is, again, for my portfolio and for, my personal growth, I want to raise $5 million next year for a liquidity fund or some, a fund. This year, give an idea, probably raised 2 to 2.5 million. I haven't seen the final numbers yet. So pretty much almost double. So 2019, I'd say, again, I was probably at 1.5, 1.8. this year 2 to 2.5, which is 10-15% growth. Target 5, and then hey, if I hit 3, I hit 2. That's still pretty pretty rock solid from that perspective. But my goal is 5.
Yeah,
I'd say. Of course, I'm talking about it, so it'll be an accredited fund for accredited investors. I've had the attorney working on these details for a month, and he's basically at the point of just tell me when you're ready. We hit the go button. So this isn't things that I just wake up in the middle of 2021 on and it'd be like, oh, this is what I want to do. From that perspective, that's another major milestone that I have. One thing I'll mention is get to that point. A lot of I used to do the JV deals. My JV deals now, I think I'm down to like a handful, and those are with people who kind of bit with me from the beginning, and we're in assets that are just doing really well. So it's not gonna don't want to upset the apple cart in that sense. And from that perspective, but by kind of moving from, and that's one of the things that I've kind of been poking you about a little bit is some of these JVs about trying to wrap them into a potential fund and giving you ideas on how to structure it that is a win-win for everybody. I've been doing all the talking so far. So
next week we're going to talk about my goals.
Yeah. So next week we'll talk about your goals. But I've been doing all the talking today. So I'm curious. Feedback. What are your thoughts on my goals?
Well, I mean, they're aggressive, but I wouldn't ever count against you. So say my internet is unstable right now, but yeah, I mean, those are, I like that I'm sure you'll have more kind of sub goals and details as far as how to reach that, obviously reach those bigger goals, but I like that there are 3, they're pretty straightforward, measurable.
There you go. Specific, measurable.
And
are they realistic?
I mean,
they're timed. So, when you go smart method, and you're right. And I work again off that 1-page business plan. I know I interrupt you when I'm starting to talk again, but you start with high goals and you break it down into little pieces of how.
No, that's so good. So yeah, I did your 1-page strategic plan last year. Is that what is that from?
That's from
a book or something.
Yeah, it's I can't. It
doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's an orange cover, and he's got the EOS Worldwide is his system as well. I can't think of the name right now, but it's I mean it's a really good book.
Yeah. Traction.
Yep.
Or is that different?
Yeah. Yep. Gino Wickman Traction. Yep.
Okay.
So, and it's interesting because
nice.
I actually used this in one of my prior companies. This is what they used. And this was a $300 million company. This is what they used. And basically it was, hey, look, we don't need a 100-page business plan that nobody's going to read. They did this. They stuck it up on the conference room wall so everyone could see it. And then every quarter they'd go through and see where they targeted. Now, the interesting thing was this was in home sales and stuff like that. They're a developer. Individuals' bonuses were based off of a component of your yearly bonus was based off of achieving these goals. So it was interesting where every quarter you'd see kind of where you fell because 50% of your bonus was your performance, 50% was based off of company bonus. So you could almost see where things, fall into action. And then, those immediate priorities you'd have kind of like, okay, which ones are mine? Because I want to make sure I get these done because they, relate to others. Actually, I have other goals as well, by the way, but I'm just keeping no secret.
Okay. Gotcha. I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I obviously have set goals and, but this will be good for me too, to get ready for next week. And I'm somebody who, I don't like to say I'm going to do something and not do it. And so, but the downside, which is great, I like to think that I'm good at follow through and finishing things. The downside with that is you tend to be maybe not as more non-committal, because it's like, I don't want to tell you what I'm going to do because it gives me a way out. And so I don't want to let myself off the hook either. So I'm excited to kind of take this next week and come up with some solid goals.
But, think of it this way, and you're a football guy as well. Every quarterback goes into the game wants 100% completion rate, and, the average is, between 65 is considered good. Baseball, you're successful 30% of the time. I look at it more like football. And if I put together 10 goals, if I hit 6 or 7 of them, that's a great year. But if you don't put anything down on paper or anything scheduled, and this is where I think a lot of investors get lost, is you just fall into that abyss. I mean, like this year, where the hell did this year go? I mean, everybody's saying that right now. And it's like, I can tell you month by month where it went, because every month I had goals in what I was doing every month. And when you do that, it's not a secret sauce. It's just a matter of, you see something. It's just like, anything like, okay, we all know, holidays are coming, and, if people celebrate Christmas, it's coming. So guess what? I got to get my tree up. I got to, decorate. I got to do, that's a goal, as simple as it may be. And it's a timed goal. Think of your business like that.
Right. In the military, I think it's called reverse planning. It's just, you set a date that you have to have this accomplished by, and then you go backwards. And it's like, then you have your little kind of sub goals along the way, and you just reverse engineer. So I think there is a ton of importance and value in the how and the planning and the habits. James Clear's Atomic Habits is a really good book. I need to reread that. He doesn't bash goals, but he talks a lot about, how to get there. So obviously we kind of, for a 30, 40-minute podcast, we need to kind of gloss over the how in some ways, but if you don't know where you're going, I mean, that's, there's no point in even coming up with the how,
So we had, and you can relate to this. So I had, a project back in the day during BRAC. We were dealing with the United States Army Legal Services Department, which was 12 or 13 branches of basically all the attorneys in the Army. And we had to not only build, we had to design and build their headquarters and courtroom in 12 months. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. And Jamie's, worked with government. I mean, to get anything done in 12 months is miraculous. So they had these two colonels. They're both Colonel Martin. So we call them the Martin twins. They were not brothers or anything. They just had the same last name. These guys were awesome, because they actually still speak with one to this day, 10 years later. They, knew how it was. What we did with them in the whole construction team, brought everyone together. But, when you talk about scheduling, something's called SIPS, SIPS, which basically stands for Short Interval Production Schedule. And we literally took this, 10 years ago. So we took Post-it notes in different colors, and each person had a different color. And you'd go up on the board, and like you said, a reverse schedule. Here's where we need to finish something. Okay, how much time do you need? And the guy said, well, I need 3 days to finish this. And you worked your way backwards, and each person would write how many days they needed and put it on the board to get to that point. But, you can still look at that in note investing as simple as, how much time do you need for due diligence? And somebody, and you can say that, okay, I need 3 weeks. Okay, well, the title report's going to take 5 days to get. I need to send it to my attorney, who's going to take 3 business days, because attorney's not going to look at it overnight. So there's 8 business days. I need a day to review, 2 days to review the loan sale agreement. Maybe you get that in advance. Okay, can you send me in advance so it doesn't cause 2 days of a delay? You need to, get the collateral, which starts that clock. So you kind of map that out and say, okay, I can close in 10. When someone asks, how can you close? I can close in 10 to 15 days, because you know that exact process, or you've mapped it out. So it's simple. And when some people say you can close in 3 days, I laugh. And I said, it can't happen. I said, unless you have a title report that you're going to guarantee right now, and stuff, which by the way, I found today 2 counties that I had to go to get title reports are closed, so I can't even get them. So
wow. So that the abstractors have to physically go there. Gotcha. Yeah, I think a lot of note investors and business owners in general get caught up in being reactive, and obviously you have to be reactive. You can't predict everything, but if you're proactive as well, you really can stay ahead of the game. So I think that's really what you're getting at.
Yeah. So one thing I want to mention too, as we talk about my goals, is, I start my next year's goals, kind of the framework, probably in the middle of the year. It's not something that I do in December. December is when I finalize them. But
now, is this like written? You start, or is it more just like thinking about it?
I start thinking about, but I usually write it down in notebooks. But since my wife got me this device called the Remarkable 2, this thing is awesome, by the way. Highly recommend it. It's basically a digital notepad that it feels like you're writing on paper. But that's all it does. It's not like, you watch videos and stuff. You can read books on it as well. But I think it's like $300 or $290 or whatever. But so I just now have this handy. I have one that's called Brain Dump. I have a folder called Brain Dump, and I just write stuff down and kind of eventually, do something with it. But, these ideas start back, typically, and again, not all of them. Some of them just pop up out of my head at some random point in time. For those who know me, that happens a lot. But, this stuff isn't like in December, oh, what do I want to do next year? I'm starting in, looking a year ahead of, okay, where do I want to take my business? What am I going to need to do? What are the things I need? And people are like, how do you do it all by yourself? Well, I don't. I have 2 consultants helping me on the membership, the training, did my new website. Actually, it's 3 now. I have a VA helping me, and I've got my VA now to the point of, so like I've got due diligence. So people have seen my, my due diligence template. What I do is I give them the skip trace. I give them the data tree reports, and they take all that information, put it on here, and put everything together, create a nice package for me, and then send it along. And then I'll go through the service and comments and stuff like that. But the things like, the pictures are already uploaded there, the property inspection reports there, the, property details, the loan amount, last paid date, all that information, instead of kind of sift through, they write down. I've got them now learning the chain of assignments, so they can write down the assignments, and then separating the files, because when you get a collateral file emailed to you, it's usually one big file with 80 sheets or 500 sheets that is just dumped. Have them breaking that apart. And I've taught them that, because now it comes into my folder. Guess what? Assignment from Wells to Bank One to PFC, PFC to USMR, so it's, it's there, and the files are named there, and I'll still go look to make sure, because I'll make sure like power of attorneys and all that stuff. I still do the normal due diligence, but just not one big cluttered file. And
it's just a lot more efficient.
Yeah, it's a lot. And that's kind of how I operate. So I can do stuff like right now, doing due diligence on 60 assets right now that I'm closing in 2 weeks.
Yeah. That blew my wife's mind when I told her that.
Does Emily want to help me, by the way? Listening?
I'll talk to her.
Okay. I got to speak with Emily today. So
that's right.
We didn't record it, but so
she does
goal
exist.
number 4. Goal number 4.
No.
Oh my God, I can't believe I forgot this. We are going to get Emily on the podcast. So.
I think you can raise $20 million before you get her.
Oh, no. So trust me, we are going to get Emily on this podcast.
Sounds good to me.
And everyone out there listening, if we have to peer pressure her, what do we have to do? We're going to get her on. So it's funny though, because, you mentioned, how like everyone's timid to come on camera and stuff. And usually you can sense that from people, get a little nervous, even like, when I did my first podcast, you did yours, but I spoke to her this morning and she's like, yeah, cool, whatever and stuff. And I'm like, shit, she's better than you,
Well, yeah. I told you, my one sister said, Emily would be more entertaining than you are. So
she's probably the brains behind it too.
Yeah. Yeah. So no, those are good goals. All 4 of them. Yeah, I'm excited to see where it goes.
Are you ready for your goals for next week?
I've got 7 days.
Yeah. So you got 7 days to, maybe I'll try and fast track that, but I'm curious for people, on the Facebook group or elsewhere, put what your goals are. And that's one thing that, again, maybe we'll put a poll in or something on the Facebook group, but, curious to hear what other people's are, because, my goal, kind of the way my theme is for this year is to try and help everyone hit their goals. From that perspective, and try and help as many people in this business that we can help. My time is limited. So from that perspective, because of everything I'm going on, but by putting some of this stuff together and streamlining a lot of things I want to do, I'm hoping that we can help a lot of people. But the reality of it is also, that individual also has the initiative in the drive to do it. Nothing in life is handed to you. You got to work hard for it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you need people's input in order to help yourself elevate everybody.
Yeah. And also I'll mention, kind of got to be able to take a little bit of criticism or, or
constructive
comments.
feedback.
Constructive feedback. Yeah. That's what I meant. Constructive feedback, not criticism, which I'll call it criticism, but it's not meant, and when I give people feedback, it's not meant to take a jab at them. It's meant to help them, meant to get your brain thinking and spinning in certain areas. And we've seen this in the past. Just don't ask a question, where should I buy notes? Well, okay, who knows? Like, where are you? How much money? What's your risk level? What's your tolerance? Start with something, I mentioned this in prior podcasts. Start with a bigger question. Hey, I'm from this. I'm thinking I've got this much money. I've studied a little bit about the state of Tennessee. It looks like it's non-judicial. Have people had experience in that state? You ask that question, people are like, oh, wow, this guy's done his research. I kind of, this guy seems, it's an impressive question compared to, some of the stuff we see.
Give me what I need.
Yeah. So Jamie, what's your role, your note and bolt?
My note and bolt, it's really more of a, it actually works well into what we've talked about today with goals and how to get things done. So it doesn't only apply to note investing, but it is that consistency beats intensity in the long term. And I think that's actually a quote from Bruce Lee, but I don't know if, who knows if that's true or not. The point is, I think just showing up every day or almost every day or every week, whatever it is, to me, in the long term is much more valuable and much more productive than, crushing it for an hour, a day or a week or something. I mean, there's all kinds of analogies we could make as far as, one would be working out. You got to work out 5 or 6 days a week if you want to see results, not just show up and do a crazy CrossFit workout for 2 hours and then not do anything for a month. So that's my note and bold, is just be consistent with how you do things. And you can certainly dial up the intensity. I'm not suggesting you never be intense about things, but I think in the long term, consistency is much more valuable.
Yeah. It's funny you mention it. So I mentioned in past, so my wife for our anniversary got me a subscription to Mind Valley. Mm-hmm. And for people who don't know Mind Valley, actually the guy who runs it just made a challenge to Harvard University. He bet him $1 million. Pretty interesting. He actually has a webinar about it today, where take 4 kids, each that go to Harvard, and he picks 4 kids who don't go to college. And over 4 years, they go through his program versus go to Harvard. And then like 2 years later, they see, who's more successful. And he believes that his people will be more successful. And actually, no, it's 4 people who applied to Harvard and didn't get in, because he believes just the mindset of having the goal to go to Harvard is just as basically equal to actually getting in, for people who have that mindset of, I want to go to Harvard. So interesting. But yeah. So what it's about is, for people who don't know, it's kind of almost like business coaching, but from many different people in different industries. I think it's like $600 a year, so it's a lot cheaper than a business coach. But it's funny you mentioned about intensity, because one of the courses I'm taking right now is the habit of ferocity, and being ferocious.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, but really, what it is, the whole thesis behind it is it's the ability to rise instinctively to any challenge. It's basically, if you're going to do something, do it at a peak performance. Don't do something half-ass, essentially.
Sure. Yeah.
So,
But again, it's a habit, so you're doing it consistently.
that's
So
exactly, yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'm taking one called Genius Hero Legend, which is 60. It takes 66 days to create a habit, and that's what they have you do going through this. There was a really good one on networking, which I'm going to actually start doing some, short videos on kind of the process. So I've taken 2 networking raising money courses through them and through the Family Office Club, and they're all pretty much very similar, end goal plans, which I'll do some videos on for people and talk about. And that's kind of some of the stuff in the membership group as well. That kind of will roll further into that. But my note and bolt today. So here's my quiz question to you, Jamie.
Uh-oh.
So my borrower, who hadn't paid in 13 years, signs a mod, sends me a check for $1,000. Okay.
Okay.
Is a deposit. What do I do with that check?
Send it to the servicer.
Correct.
Okay.
So I asked the question to the servicer because I said, well, it's a down payment or basically a modification. So it's not principal, it's not interest, it's really just, income. So I said, so why should I send it to the servicer is a bigger question.
I mean, just assuming for tax reporting purposes.
Yep.
I don't know.
No, that's it. They said, so we can acknowledge it that he made the payment, so we can report it to him as well as you for tax purposes as well. It's another record by a third party that the payment was actually made. But because
and I know some of them do, report to. I guess it wouldn't be part of his credit report. I don't know. Some of the servicers do report to the credit agencies as well.
Yeah,
that's probably.
It's interesting. I think Madison's like the only one.
I think you're right. They're the only one that I know of.
Yeah, because I don't think FCI does. I don't believe Allied does. I don't think SN does. I don't think a Land Home does. So yeah, be interesting.
Yeah,
I'm sure Superior doesn't.
I'm sure Lake City doesn't.
Yeah. Inside joke there. But so it's one of the things like when you originate a loan as well, that's the thing. I'm thinking, okay, if I originate a new loan or, so forth, or convert a CFD or anything that has a down payment, you're probably best to have it go through, that servicer.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Right.
Yeah, we haven't been, for our conversions, we haven't been charging borrowers, or we've been trying to keep it as streamlined as possible, but some of these cost $500-600 just to do the recording. So I have started to at least consider charging something.
So yeah, I will find out what it is. So I typically offer them, if they want title insurance, they can pay for it, and typically the recording depends on the cost. So
you'll have them pay for the recording.
Yep, because they would have had to anyways.
Yeah,
if they paid it off. But yeah, so before we wrap up, one thing I'll mention for next week will be interesting. So I've got this asset that I talked about that's supposed to close today. And this is one in Maryland, which will have a very nice return. That unfortunately the borrowers they inherited the house, refinanced it many years ago, and when they refinanced it, they couldn't afford, honestly, the payments at that point in time. They've had life circumstances.
So you've owned this asset for a while now.
I've had this asset for probably 2 years.
Okay.
So, life happens, and, they had a lot of issues, and so forth. And, basically we were supposed to foreclose 2 months ago, and basically they listed it to try and sell it. And the listing agent was actually buying it, had an agreement to buy it if nobody made an offer above a certain price. And they promised they would close the day before the foreclosure sale. Then they basically said, hey, look, we need an extra day for title. So we canceled the foreclosure sale. But we had them put like $1,000, hindsight being 2020, should have been like 10 grand. I had them put that down.
Mm-hmm.
And this was like back in October. So now we're in December. And basically after like a week, I told our favorite attorney, I'm like, reschedule it. So the sale now is the 8th. And, the woman who's buying it texted me last week saying, yep, we're going to close before Thanksgiving. Then texted me and said they're closing this past Monday. Then texted me saying closing on Wednesday. On Wednesday, I get a message saying that the hard money lender on the deal wants title agency to have a survey, property survey. I'm like, they're not getting this in a day. So
Yeah.
they're allegedly supposed to close today. So next week, I'm either going to have foreclosed on this, sold it, or who the hell knows what happens. The borrower's filed bankruptcy like 27 times.
Wow.
Not really, but several times. So who knows what can happen. But I know one thing, I'm not canceling the foreclosure again.
No, not at this point. Do you have any, do you think it was kind of coordinated to just delay? Or do you think these were legitimate reasons?
I'll talk about that after, because there's some information we found that had nothing to do with the borrower, by the way. It was between the buyer and the title agent. Basically, yeah. So interesting, but
yeah, I wouldn't cancel that foreclosure either.
Yeah, it's so. Actually, I should text them and be like, "Hey, you closing?" One last note and bolt, and I apologize for dragging this on. I got 2 contracts this past week. One from a REO management company and one from a preservation company. And, people a lot of times, it's just like your Apple subscriptions, you just click on it and sign whatever they say because there's no ifs, ands, or buts. Both of these agreements had language in there that essentially said we could pretty much murder the borrowers, burn the house down, and blow up the city, and we're not responsible. You would be.
Wow.
In kind of exaggerating a little bit. They had no indemnification of me, and they had no liability. They wiped themselves of 100% liability on anything that were to occur. So you think a preservation company goes out there, they forgets to winterize the property, it floods, you're up the creek. Oh, sorry, not our problem. So whenever you get a contract from people, and we've mentioned this in Note and Bolt many times, spend the $200 to have your attorney review it, please.
Yeah. Makes sense.
And I told them, both of them, I said, I'm not signing this. I'm going to have my attorney review it. And then one of them comes back and says, okay, if you have an agreement you want, just send it to us. I mean, it's kind of,
interesting. Yeah.
Oh, one more. Sorry.
What's that?
I resolved that issue I had with the company that had made a mistake on certain type of reports. Got that resolved. So
nice.
So that's done. Is it a win-win? Nope. Is it better than I anticipated? Yep. Is it a lot less than I anticipated or wanted? Yep. But at the end of the day, it's one less headache I got to deal with, and life moves on.
Nice. Good job.
So I'm done talking, so we can finish.
I'll have to talk a lot next week.
Yes, you are going to talk a lot next week.
Sorry, I think last time we had me on the couch, therapy session. So I did a lot of talking last time.
I'm dropping the mic right now, so you can go wrap this episode up.
Well, everybody, thanks for joining us. This has been fun. We have a lot of good guests coming up in the next couple months, so stay tuned. Be sure to give us only positive reviews on all the places you can do that, and go out and do some good deeds. Take care.
Take care, everyone.